I have yet to see a single example of Angel Reese being a leader outside of rebounding her own missed layups. What does Angel Reese do? What is her contribution? You tell me, because I'm not seeing it. I know I'm harsh on Angel Reese, but she considers herself a star. If you're going to call yourself a star, I expect you to perform like a star, especially in big moments. Caitlin Clark was injured. Angel Reese was the only star on the court last night. And for 27 minutes, she completely disappeared.
What you're about to witness is the most devastating performance in WNBA history. Angel Reese just experienced her worst nightmare on the biggest stage imaginable, and it wasn't even close. 4 points, 4 measly points in 27 minutes of prime. Time television at the United Center, the largest arena in the NBA. But here's the kicker that makes this absolutely brutal. Caitlin Clark wasn't even playing. The Indiana Fever destroyed the Chicago Sky by 27 points without their biggest star. And what happened next exposed the ugly truth about this so-called rivalry. The warning signs were everywhere if you knew where to look. Hours before tip-off, something unprecedented happened that should have told everyone exactly how this night would unfold. Ticket prices for this supposedly marquee matchup between two WNBA superstars collapsed to just $3. $3. You can't buy a decent coffee for that price, yet that's what people were willing to pay to watch Angel Reese play basketball at the United Center. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Chicago Sky had been pushing this narrative all season that Reese was just as much of a box office draw as Clark, that fans came specifically to see her play too. Reese herself had been quoted saying she'd look back in 20 years and realize the reason people watch women's basketball isn't just because of one person, though she refuses to say Caitlin Clark's name. It's because of her too, and she wanted everyone to realize that. Then reality hit like a freight train. The moment Clark's quad injury was confirmed and her absence became official, the bottom fell out of the secondary market. Scalpers couldn't give these tickets away. Fans who had been excited about this historic United Center showdown suddenly lost all interest. We're talking about tickets that were initially priced at premium levels, completely collapsing the second Clark wasn't going to be there. Social media told the whole story, with fans posting screenshots of the $3 tickets, making jokes about how they could afford to take their entire family to see the Sky play for less than the cost of parking.
Well, there's a lot of reaction coming in from last night's drubbing, destruction, annihilation, cremation, whatever you want to call it, roasting, sauteed, whatever your form of cooking may be. But the Indiana Fever absolutely dismantled the Chicago Sky.
Angel Reese is now quoted as saying, "I'll look back in 20 years and be like, yeah, the reason why we're watching women's basketball is not just because of one person." She refuses to say Caitlin Clark's name. It's because of me too, and I want you to realize that.
Last night was somewhat of a big moment for Angel Reese and the Chicago Bravado. For starters, the WNBA moved the game out of the local dump the Bravado usually play in and relocated to the United Center, which is the largest arena in the NBA, holding over 20,000 people. Now, to their credit, there seemed to be a good crowd in the United Center last night. I had someone who was at the game send me a few pictures, and most sections seemed to be filled. It wasn't a sellout, but there was supposedly over 19,000 people in attendance. Of course, it's easier to draw a decent crowd when tickets are selling for $3 hours before the game starts.
What made this ticket disaster even more telling was the stark contrast to previous games where Clark's presence drove massive sales and sellout crowds. Fans would line up hours before games just to catch a glimpse of Clark warming up. The Chicago Sky crowd was asking players for autographs who weren't even born the last time Chicago scored this few points. People in the stands weren't even a thought in their parents' minds when the Sky last managed only 52 points, their lowest total since 2011, but the $3 tickets were just the beginning of Angel Reese's nightmare coming true. The United Center was hosting its first ever WNBA game. CBS had cleared their primetime schedule with virtually no competition on television. A sold-out crowd packed the biggest arena in the NBA expecting fireworks. Instead, they got to witness what analysts are calling a disaster class and complete collapse on the sport's biggest stage. 4 points on 2 of 7 shooting in 27 minutes. This is how you destroy your reputation in real time. The eyes of the sports world were focused on Angel Reese and the WNBA, and she once again proved why ratings plummet whenever Clark isn't involved. Reese managed only 4 points while missing 5 of her 7 shots, including 2 embarrassing missed layups that had the crowd groaning audibly. One of those attempts got blocked entirely, and the cameras caught every moment of her visible frustration as the game slipped completely away. Someone who's been pushed as Chicago's superstar and supposed box office draw, this stat line was absolutely devastating. The numbers don't lie. Caitlin Clark is averaging more assists per game than Angel Reese is averaging points per game this entire season. Clark's sitting at 9.3 assists per game, while Reese is managing just 9.1 points per game. Even more diabolical, Reese is shooting 190 of 59 from less than 5 feet away from the basket. She's missing layups at a rate that defies basketball logic.
Oof, what an outfit Angel Reese was rocking. She put a lot of time, a lot of effort into making sure her ensemble was on point. Are my boots matching my jacket? Are my gloves matching my hat? Angel Reese put in tons of time for this outfit, which begs the question, does Angel Reese put in more time in her outfits for the pre-game catwalk, or does she put in more time to actually get better at the game of basketball? Folks, there were people in the crowd getting there early saying, hey, Caitlin, can you sign my jersey? Hey, Aaliyah, can you sign my shirt? Hey, Sophie, can you sign my picture? There were people asking for autographs in the Chicago Sky crowd that weren't even born yet the last time the Chicago Sky scored this little amount of points. There were people in the crowd who weren't even a thought in their parents' minds at the time that the Chicago Sky last scored at least 52 points, the lowest point total since 2011.
This wasn't just missing a few tough shots either. This was a player who looked completely lost out there, making poor decisions and appearing overwhelmed by the moment. She seemed to have no answer for Indiana's defensive pressure whatsoever. The cameras didn't miss a single frustrated headshake or disappointed gesture as shot after shot clanged off the rim. The crowd's reaction told the entire story, starting with excited anticipation from fans who paid good money to see this matchup, quickly turning into restless disappointment as Reese continued to struggle possession after possession. But this wasn't Angel Reese's first public humiliation against the Fever. It's becoming a disturbing pattern that started months ago and is only getting worse. Let's take you back to May 17th when the Indiana Fever absolutely destroyed the Chicago Sky 93-58 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. That 35-point blowout wasn't just a bad game, it was the beginning of what would become Angel Reese's worst nightmare. Against Indiana, during that May matchup, Reese tried to get physical with Caitlin Clark, attempting to intimidate her and throw her off her game. You could see Reese getting increasingly aggressive, making contact whenever possible, trying to establish some kind of dominance over Clark. Her tactics completely backfired as the Fever cruised to one of the most lopsided victories in WNBA history. The footage shows Reese getting visibly upset, taking her jersey out in frustration while Clark walked away unfazed. Here's what makes this pattern so damaging for Reese's reputation. The May embarrassment wasn't an isolated incident. It was the first chapter in what's now become a completely one-sided rivalry. The Fever are undefeated against Chicago this season, and both games have been absolute blowouts. Both times, Reese has been the common denominator in these failures, her confidence seemingly crumbling whenever she faces Indiana.
Angel Reese, part 38, let's get it!
Life throws her lemons, she makes bricks.
Bang!
PSA to anyone watching, she is right-handed. Right-handed, by the way. She missed the rim by 3 feet, man.
Bang!
I gotta say, this is my favorite summer sitcom. Pecan?
Butter pecan! Bang!
Here's a stat. She's been blocked 20 times, and she's only made 21 hoops.
What?
Fan reactions across social media are flooded with side-by-side comparisons of both games, highlighting how Reese has consistently underperformed when facing the Fever. Comments range from questioning her ability to perform under pressure to straight up mocking her attempts to compete with Clark's team. What we're witnessing isn't just bad games, it's the complete dismantling of Angel Reese's confidence and reputation against Indiana. Here's what makes this latest beatdown even more brutal than anything we've seen before. The Fever didn't need Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, or even their head coach to destroy Chicago. Think about that for a second. Indiana was missing 3 absolutely crucial pieces of their puzzle, yet they still delivered a dominant 27-point victory that left the Sky looking like a high school team playing against professionals. Kelsey Mitchell stepped up in a massive way, leading the Fever with 17 points on solid shooting while adding 5 rebounds and 2 assists. Mitchell showed exactly why she's been such an important veteran presence for this team, taking control of the offense and never letting Chicago gain any momentum whatsoever. Her leadership on the court was obvious from the opening tip, and she never let up. But here's where it gets really impressive. Ari McDonald came off the bench and absolutely torched the Sky with 12 points, including 3 made 3-pointers and 4 steals. McDonald had signed a hardship contract and immediately made Chicago pay for every mistake they made. She ran the offense like she'd been with the team all season, showing the kind of basketball IQ that separates professional players from pretenders.
As a matter of fact, this might have been the first WNBA game broadcast on CBS in prime time. If it's not the first, it's one of very few. This was a big moment. I'm sure the WNBA would call it historic. Angel Reese is playing in an NBA arena in prime time on network television on Saturday night. Outside of regular season baseball, maybe the College World Series, there was no competition on television. The eyes of the sports world were focused on Angel Reese and the WNBA. And Angel Reese once again proved why no one is watching her.
Caitlin Clark is averaging more assists per game than Angel Reese is averaging points per game this season. Yeah. 9.3 points per assist per game. 9.3 assists per game. Let me just bring it up. To 9.1 points per game.
The Fever's ball movement told the whole story about their superior basketball fundamentals. They recorded 20 assists on 27 made field goals, which shows a team-first mentality that Chicago simply couldn't match. Every possession looked smooth and purposeful, while the Sky appeared chaotic and disjointed on the other end. Acting head coach Austin Kelly deserves major credit for keeping this team focused and executing their game plan without missing a beat. Kelly stepped in for Stephanie White, and the team never skipped a beat, showing the depth and professionalism throughout Indiana's entire organization. After the game, Kelly emphasized how their defense set the tone, holding Chicago's starters to just 8 for 29 from the field, less than 30% shooting. They held the Sky to 32% for the entire game while winning the rebounding battle and taking away Chicago's second chance opportunities. Throughout all of this dominance by Indiana, there's been a fascinating subplot that perfectly captures Angel Reese's priorities. Before every game, Reese puts tremendous time and effort into her pregame outfit. Are her boots matching her jacket? Are her gloves matching her hat? She spends what appears to be hours coordinating every detail of her ensemble for the pregame catwalk, making sure everything is perfectly coordinated and Instagram ready. This raises the obvious question that fans have been asking all season. Does Angel Reese put more time into her outfits for the pregame catwalk, or does she put more time into actually getting better at the game of basketball? The evidence suggests we know the answer. While other players are in the gym working on their fundamentals, perfecting their shooting form, and studying film, Reese appears more focused on her fashion statements than her basketball statements. Contrast becomes even more stark when you consider that she brought the nice hat, the nice boots, the nice jacket, and the nice gloves to the United Center, but unfortunately left her game at home. 4 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, and a -23 rating in 27 minutes of action. Her pregame outfit was flawless, but her basketball performance was an absolute disaster on the sport's biggest stage. This United Center performance has cemented the narrative that the Fever are ascending, while the Sky are falling apart completely. Angel Reese's 4-point disaster on national television showed exactly where this rivalry stands. It's completely one-sided in Indiana's favor. The Fever's depth and resilience positions them as serious championship contenders heading into the rest of 2025, proving they can dominate opponents even without their biggest stars on the court. But here's where this story gets even more terrifying. For Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky, Caitlin Clark is scheduled for re-evaluation and could potentially return as early as this week. Imagine what happens when Clark rejoins this already dominant Indiana team that doesn't even need her to crush their rivals by 27 points. We're talking about a team that's already dismantling opponents without their best player, their second best shooter, and their head coach. When Clark returns to this Fever squad, we might witness something unprecedented in professional basketball, a rivalry that becomes so one-sided it stops being a rivalry altogether. The Chicago Sky are already struggling to compete with Indiana's bench players and coaching staff. What happens when you add back the most dominant player in women's basketball to a team that's already crushing everyone in their path? The ticket. Prices told us everything we needed to know before the game even started. The performance on the court confirmed what the market already understood. There is only one true superstar in this supposed rivalry, and she didn't even need to play for her team to completely embarrass their biggest rival on the sport's grandest stage. But the psychological damage runs much deeper than just one embarrassing performance. Sports psychologists have written extensively about what happens when athletes face mental blocks against specific opponents, and Angel Reese is displaying every single warning sign. Her body language changes the moment she steps on the court. Against Indiana, her shot selection becomes erratic. Her decision-making deteriorates rapidly. She's not just losing games against the Fever, she's losing her mental edge entirely. The numbers back this up in ways that are genuinely shocking to analyze. In games not involving Indiana, Reese manages to maintain somewhat respectable statistics despite her obvious limitations. But against the Fever, her shooting percentage drops dramatically, her turnover rate skyrockets, and her defensive intensity completely disappears. It's like watching two completely different players depending on which uniform is across from her on the court. This mental collapse has real consequences beyond just basketball statistics. Reese's social media presence, which had been consistently confident and defiant throughout her career, has noticeably shifted in tone following these Indiana blowouts. Where she once posted boldly about her performances and impact on the game, her content has become more focused on everything except her actual basketball achievements. The fashion posts increase. The lifestyle content multiplies. The basketball highlights become increasingly rare. Media members who cover the WNBA regularly have started noticing this pattern too. Beat reporters are asking tougher questions about her preparation and focus. Analysts are openly questioning whether she possesses the mental toughness required to compete at the highest levels of professional basketball. Former players are providing commentary that would have been unthinkable just months ago, suggesting that some athletes simply aren't built for the pressure that comes with being labeled a superstar. The Chicago Sky organization itself is facing serious questions about their investment in Reese as a franchise cornerstone. Season ticket holders are expressing frustration not just with the team's performance, but specifically with the gap between Reese's marketing presence and her actual contributions on the court. Corporate sponsors who sign deals expecting to leverage her supposed star power are reportedly having conversations about performance clauses and contract modifications. Local Chicago media has been surprisingly harsh in their coverage, with sports talk radio hosts taking calls from frustrated fans who feel deceived by the hype surrounding their supposed superstar. The contrast with how Indiana media covers Caitlin Clark couldn't be more stark. While Clark generates genuine excitement and pride in her community, Reese is increasingly becoming a source of embarrassment and disappointment for Chicago basketball fans. League executives are privately acknowledging what everyone can see. This rivalry narrative was artificially constructed and is completely unsustainable. The WNBA desperately wanted a compelling storyline to drive viewership and engagement, but you can't manufacture competitive balance when one player is clearly operating on a completely different level than the other. The marketing campaigns built around this supposed rivalry are being quietly shelved as the reality becomes undeniable. Television networks that invested heavily in broadcasting these matchups are facing their own uncomfortable truths. Ratings crater whenever Clark isn't playing, regardless of how much promotional effort goes into marketing Reese as an alternative attraction. Advertisers are demanding explanations for viewership numbers that consistently fail to meet projections when the games don't feature Indiana's genuine superstar. International basketball scouts and analysts have been particularly brutal in their assessments. European leagues that were supposedly interested in Reese as a potential overseas signing have gone completely silent following these recent performances. The global basketball community recognizes talent and competitive fire when they see it, and what they're seeing from Angel Reese against quality opposition isn't meeting professional standards. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of this entire situation is how it's affecting young players who looked up to Reese as an example. Youth basketball coaches are reporting that players who previously tried to emulate her style are now asking to learn fundamentals instead of focusing on social media presence and fashion statements. The lesson being absorbed by the next generation is crystal clear. Style without substance doesn't work when the lights get brightest. The broader implications for women's basketball are genuinely concerning. The WNBA invested significant resources and credibility into promoting this rivalry, and its spectacular failure raises questions about the league's ability to identify and develop genuine star power. When your marketing strategy falls apart, this dramatically on the sport's biggest stages, it damages the entire product and makes sponsors hesitant to invest in future storylines. Angel Reese's worst nightmare isn't just becoming reality, it's getting worse every single game, and there's no end in sight. When Clark returns to this already dominant Indiana team, we might witness something unprecedented in professional sports. A rivalry that becomes so lopsided, it actually damages the league's credibility. The Chicago Sky aren't just losing games anymore. They're losing the respect of fans, media, and fellow players who expected much more from their supposed superstar when it mattered most.